Dear friends, welcome to Captivating True Stories. Please send your story, encounter, or experience to captivatingtruestories@outlook.com. Feel free to comment and share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe. You are appreciated.
The Abduction of Sean Hornbeck. It was a normal Sunday afternoon in a quiet rural town in Missouri. October 2002. 11-year-old Sean Hornbeck was riding his bike to a friend's house, but he never made it. As he pedaled down a dirt road, a man in a white truck pulled up beside him, asking for directions. When Sean stopped to help, the man, Michael Devlin, 36, punched him, shoved him into the truck, and sped off. Devlin took Sean to his apartment in Kirkwood, a suburb of St. Louis, over 50 miles from his home. Over the next 4.5 years, Sean endured unspeakable abuse and psychological manipulation at the hands of Devlin. Devlin threatened to kill his family if he ever tried to escape. He beat Sean into submission and forced him to adopt a new identity, Sean Devlin. Shockingly, Devlin allowed Sean out in public. He went to malls and played video games. Neighbors saw him regularly. He even had a MySpace page. Still, he never tried to run. The trauma ran too deep. Devlin had convinced Sean that no one was looking for him anymore, and that the world had forgotten him. But of course, this was not true. In 2003, a year after Sean disappeared, his desperate parents appeared on the Montel Williams show, where a popular TV psychic, Sylvia Brown, told them Sean was dead and that his body could be found near jagged rocks and trees. Her words devastated them. Brown said in front of millions of viewers that Sean was not coming back and that the parents should move on. But even as they mourned, Sean's mother, Pam Akers, refused to give up hope. She later said she had dreams, vivid ones, where she saw Sean crying, reaching out to her, and telling her, "I'm alive." Was it a mother's instinct? Or something else? On January 8th, 2007, Devlin abducted another boy, Ben Ownby. He was 13 years old. But this time, a teenage neighbor saw Devlin's white pickup truck speeding away from the scene. The lead was enough, and 2 days later, police raided Devlin's apartment, where they found Ben. And then, to everyone's shock, they found Sean Hornbeck, alive, quiet, thin, now 15 years old. The world was stunned. Devlin received multiple life sentences after pleading guilty to 71 counts, including kidnapping, child molestation, and attempted murder. Sean was reunited with his family with an emotional worldwide broadcast. He later said, "There were moments I felt like I was gone forever, but something kept me from giving up. Something told me I'd make it." He said that throughout his captivity, he would hear a voice in his head that wasn't quite his own. Something that told him, "Your parents are alive. They love you. Just stay strong." And even stranger, Sean said he felt a pull on certain days, an inner force telling him to watch people closely or stay ready, because help was coming. It was never clear whether this was trauma-based intuition or something beyond. Sean's mother had dreams of him alive, and he heard a voice telling him not to lose hope. Was it coincidence? Intuition? Or did something mystical help Sean hold on? The Abduction of J.C. Lee Dugard. June 10th, 1991. 11-year-old J.C. Dugard wore her favorite pink stretch pants and a butterfly t-shirt as she left her family's rural home to catch the school bus. Just before she reached the stop, a grey sedan pulled up. The passenger door opened. She was grabbed by a woman, while a man stunned her with a stun gun. And as she crumpled to the ground, they threw her into the back seat. Her stepfather, Carl Probin, saw it all happen from their front porch. Shaking, he jumped on a bike and gave chase. But the car sped away. That was the last time anyone saw JC for 18 years. JC was driven to a home in Antioch, California, a residential neighborhood where she would be held prisoner in the backyard of a man named Philip Garrido, a convicted sex offender on parole, and his wife Nancy. The Garridos had built a series of tents, sheds, and soundproofed rooms behind their house, hidden from view by fences, tarps, and overgrown vegetation. In her first days, JC was locked in a tiny, windowless shed. The only people she saw were Philip, who regularly abused her, and Nancy, who would give her toys or candy after assaults. Philip controlled her with fear, threats, and kept her on drugs. He claimed angels would punish her if she tried to escape, and that her family had stopped looking for her. In 1994, at the age of 14, JC gave birth to her first child, a daughter born on the floor of the compound with no medical care. 3 years later, she had a second daughter, both fathered by Philip Garrido. She taught her girls how to read using old encyclopedias and created a make-believe world for them, because it was the only one they had. The Garridos sometimes took JC and the girls to public places, but she was too brainwashed and terrified to say who she was. Because of the threats, she believed if she ran, everyone she loved would die. By 2009, Garrido grew increasingly erratic. He created a bizarre religious group called God's Desire and tried to book speaking events at UC Berkeley. On August 24, 2009, he brought his 2 daughters, now 11 and 15, with him to the campus. Campus police officer Lisa Campbell noticed that the girls were awkward and confused. Their demeanor and appearance caused her concern, so she filed a report. Garrido was called in for questioning the next day. He brought Alyssa, JC, and the girls with him. During the interview, JC finally broke when an officer gently said, "We know something's not right." So she whispered, "I'm JC." 18 years after vanishing, she spoke her name out loud. News broke the next day. The girl who had vanished in 1991 was alive and had been held in a suburban backyard just 170 miles from where she disappeared. JC's mother, Terry Probyn, had never stopped believing their reunion was heartbreaking. Terry reportedly collapsed into her daughter's arms, whispering, "My baby." Philip Garrido was sentenced to 431 years to life, while Nancy Garrido received 36 years to life. The backyard prison was torn down, and JC and her daughters entered trauma recovery under protective care. In 2011, JC wrote a memoir titled A Stolen Life. In it, she revealed that she often imagined flying away or sending her voice through the sky to her mother. She said she used her imagination as a form of escape. Her strength, in her own words, "I may be damaged, but I am not broken. They stole my life, but not my soul." She founded the JAYC Foundation, which helps families recovering from trauma and abduction. JC remains a voice for the voiceless, turning unimaginable suffering into compassion and advocacy. The Girl in the Box. Colleen Stan's 7-year nightmare. Colleen Stan, 20, was an adventurous and independent young woman, traveling from Eugene, Oregon, in May 1977 to a friend's birthday in California. She was used to hitchhiking. This was the 70s after all. But she trusted her gut, so she turned down multiple rides until a young couple, with a baby, pulled over in a blue Dodge Colt. They looked kind, safe, and the presence of a child sealed her decision, so she took up their offer for a ride. That couple was Cameron and Janice Hooker. Within hours, her life was stolen. After stopping at a remote location under the pretense of sightseeing, Cameron pulled a knife on Colleen, blindfolded her, gagged her, and placed a heavy, soundproofed wooden box over her head, a homemade sensory deprivation device. She was transported back to the Hooker's home in Red Bluff, California, where she would be imprisoned for the next 7 years. Cameron and Janice lived in a modest home with a concealed torture chamber. Cameron had constructed a wooden box no larger than a coffin and placed it underneath their waterbed. This is where Colleen was kept 23 hours a day, in darkness, silence, and agony. There was no room to sit or stand, just lie down, unmoving. For the first 3 years, she was not allowed to speak, unless spoken to. She was fed scraps. She used a bedpan inside the box. Her only regular interaction was with her abuser, treated as a sex slave. Cameron Hooker, a sadistic narcissist, obsessed with sexual slavery, didn't just control Colleen with chains and locks. He used a fabricated secret organization he called the Company. He told her they were always watching, and that they would kill her family if she tried to escape, speak out, or disobey. To reinforce this fear, he made her sign a slave contract, officially naming him her master. Colleen truly began to believe she belonged to him. After years in the box, Cameron rewarded her obedience with small freedoms. She was allowed out of the box for longer periods, where she was forced to do household chores, care for his children, and endure constant assault and torture, all while believing the Company would kill her if she tried to flee. In a disturbing twist, Cameron even let her visit her family. In 1981, Colleen smiled in family photos. Her parents were confused, sensing something off, but she assured them she was fine. Cameron stood nearby, posing as her boyfriend. And after the visit, she went back. Cameron's wife, Janice, had been his first slave, a relationship that began when she was just 16. She had agreed to let him kidnap another woman if he'd stop abusing her, but over time, she grew increasingly disturbed by what he was doing to Colleen. In 1984, Janice broke down. She confessed to her pastor, and then to Colleen, that the Company wasn't real. Colleen was stunned. Every restriction, every beating, every act of submission had been based on a lie. So she gathered her strength, called her father, and fled. Colleen didn't go to the police at first. She needed time to recover mentally. Her trauma was that deep. But when she found out Janice had turned Cameron in a few months later, cutting a deal for full immunity in exchange for her testimony, Colleen agreed to testify. The trial was astonishing. Cameron Hooker was convicted of kidnapping, sexual assault, and false imprisonment. And in 1985 he was sentenced to 104 years in prison. He remains incarcerated to this day, though he's attempted parole multiple times, all denied as of 2023. Psychologists say, this case is a textbook example of Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bonding, and coercive control, so severe that victims obey even without physical restraints. Colleen slowly rebuilt her life. She went to college, became a mother, and has since spoken publicly about her ordeal. In interviews, she has said, "I survived. He didn't break me. I know what love is now. I have it in my life." The Abduction of Elizabeth Smart. June 2002. Elizabeth Smart, just 14 years old, was asleep in the bedroom she shared with her 9-year-old sister, Mary Catherine, in Salt Lake City, Utah. Sometime around 2 a.m., a man entered the room with a knife. He whispered to Elizabeth, "Don't make a sound. Come with me, or I'll kill you and your family." Terrified, Elizabeth followed. Mary Catherine, frozen in fear, pretended to be asleep, but heard the entire encounter. She didn't move until hours later, when she ran to her parents and told them what happened. Despite immediate police involvement and a community-wide search, there were no immediate leads. The abductor was Brian David Mitchell, a former street preacher who called himself Emmanuel and claimed to be a prophet of God. He had briefly worked at the Smart household as a day laborer, and that's how he had targeted Elizabeth. He took her into the Wasatch Mountains, just 4 miles from her home, to a hidden campsite. There, he and his wife, Wanda Barzy, subjected Elizabeth to 9 months of hell, physical and psychological torture. Elizabeth was shackled, forced to wear a robe and veil, renamed Shershob, and indoctrinated into Mitchell's twisted beliefs. He told her that he would marry multiple women as part of a spiritual command. Elizabeth, frightened and brainwashed, learned to comply to survive, enduring daily sexual assault, starvation, and dehydration. For months, Elizabeth's sister Mary Catherine racked her brain. One day, she suddenly remembered the voice of the man who took her sister. It sounded like a handyman who once worked on the roof. His name? Emmanuel. That was Mitchell's alias.
The Smart family went public with the name and an artist's sketch of him. They distributed it widely and appeared on national television. For a long time, police hadn't taken the tip seriously, but this new attention turned the tide. On March 12, 2003, 9 months after Elizabeth vanished, a couple walking in Sandy, Utah, saw a man and 2 women dressed oddly, wearing robes and veils in public. One of the women seemed out of place, so they called the police. When confronted, Elizabeth initially pretended not to be who she was. She had been threatened for months that if she ever revealed her identity, her family would be killed. But the officers didn't give up. Gently, one said, "We think you might be Elizabeth Smart." After a pause, she responded softly,
Yes, I am Elizabeth.
Brian David Mitchell was found guilty in 2010 and sentenced to life in prison, while Wanda Barzee pleaded guilty and was released in 2018 after 15 years, a decision that sparked public outrage. Despite the trauma, Elizabeth Smart emerged as a beacon of resilience. She testified against her captors, then founded the Elizabeth Smart Foundation as a child safety advocate. She since wrote a best-selling memoir called My Story. Elizabeth is now married with children and works to encourage others who have endured trauma, and speaks publicly to educate the public on abuse recovery, prevention, and survival.